Hi, it's Ian. Welcome to my 30 Days of Knife Skills. This is day one, and we're working with carrots. So here I have my carrot. I have my synthetic board. It's called High Soft is the brand. It's a soft synthetic board. And I have a few other tools, including my knife. It's a gyuto, Japanese chef's knife. I have a wet and a dry towel, my board scraper, and a couple of different kinds of peelers, and my garbage pail. So you don't always, of course, have to peel your carrots, but this one looks a little bit tired. So in this case, I will be peeling it. The first thing I always do with peeling carrots is to take the ends off. And then I usually reach for this style, the Y style peeler. So in this case, I will hold it like this and then just go down, rotate, go down, rotate. Of course, we could do the same thing with this, coming back this way. Seems like a very simple step, but a lot of people forget or don't realize that if you cut off the ends, it's very, very helpful to get the entire peel from the edge to edge without missing anything. It also helps you get started on that peeling cut. So it's a very useful trick to do, and it also works for many other vegetables, not just carrots. So I do that all the time. It's always very good to have a scraper. One of the worst ways to treat your knives is to continuously scrape on your board this way. Especially Japanese knives that are very thin, they're not really meant to do that. So if you don't have a scraper, at the very least, you can turn over the knife and then use the backside to scrape. That would be a much better use. But I love having scrapers, and I have quite a few in my collection. So anyway. Next, there's a lot of different directions to go. Sometimes I will cut it in half and cut it into half lengthwise and then again in half, so in quarters lengthwise. I might be doing that if I'm fermenting carrots, or if there's some reason to do it that way where I'm trying to get that center core exposed. Another very common one is julienne, the quick julienne. So I almost never cut into let's say quarters this way and then slice and then julienne in the traditional way. It's not how I usually do things. So probably the most common cut that I have is cutting into this shape first. So this could be used as is, but in the case of julienne, I would be either stacking them and then cutting into julienne, or if I'm even more lazy and in a hurry, then I will just fan it out like that and then just go like this. And then I'm not that concerned about perfect uniformity in the cut. So they look similar, and I don't mind at all the fact that there's sharp ends instead of having the traditional julienne cut. The other thing that I like about this is that they all have the center piece. So if you do a traditional julienne cut, some parts are on the outside, some parts are on the inside. But this kind of cutting for julienne, I like how they're much more uniform. So if you, for example, soak this in water, they'll keep the same shape from piece to piece instead of all changing different shapes. So that is the julienne. That's one cut. Another very common cut, maybe for stews or longer cooks, is a roll cut. This is another one that is very applicable to a lot of different kinds of vegetables. Roll cut is simply cutting, roll, cut, roll, cut, roll. So it's usually about a quarter turn, and I usually hold the end of the carrot up a little bit. So what you get is multiple surfaces. You can see some parts are wider, some parts are smaller. So I have 1, 2, 3, 4 cut surfaces on this one, plus the outside. So this makes it easy actually to get similar shapes or sizes, even if you have one thick part of the carrot and one thin part of the carrot. You can sort of adjust and make it so that they'll all cook in the same amount of time. So that's quite useful too. Going back to the julienne, if we wanted to go for fine mince, then we could take that and go to the next step. So something like that, maybe that would be for filling of a dumpling or something where you want, you're not going to be cooking it that much, but so the cooking time won't be there. That's why you need to get it smaller and maybe get it incorporated into the other ingredients. Maybe like tuna salad, I might cut it small like that. Although this regular small julienne is plenty good for that as well. So this knife happens to be a Japanese carbon steel knife, and the carbon steel cutting surface will react with food eventually, depending on what you're cutting. But that's the reason for the towels, is to keep my knife clean and keeping it from getting oxidized and eventually rusting from having residue. So something like carrots, well, it's not really a problem, but something like more acidic like lemons or even onions, it can become an issue. So that's why I have these here. Another kind of cut, of course, would be to cut it in half, and I like using the bias again, so doing slices like this, that might be nice in a salad, something like that. So easy to eat, and it's still kind of in bite-sized chunks rather than keeping it whole. So yeah, a lot of times for slicing, I go on a bias in the half kind of shape like this. So another very quick large piece might be to half it and then cut it into this kind of baton, and then going like this. You could stack it up or keep it sort of stacked. I might not be too concerned about the exact uniformity. So this might be really good for like a soup. Maybe if I'm making a quick miso soup or something like that, where I know that this size will cook in about 5 minutes or so. This might take a little bit longer, this size, even though it's a nice shape to work with. Of course, if I'm eating it with chopsticks, maybe I'd prefer a bigger kind of a shape like this, or even baton. Depends on what kind of dish it is. So there's a lot of different directions to go in. So from here, also, you could just quarter lengthwise, and then this could be like a carrot stick. This might be good for roasting. Give a couple of surfaces, and then maybe you want to halfway through turn it to the other surface so they both brown. Or maybe for like an alternate to this roll cut size, maybe large chunks like this. Something like that for a stew or something that can withstand a little bit more time cooking. If you want it bigger than that, of course, you could just cut it with the whole carrot, or just go with a half instead of a quarter lengthwise, like that. So those are some ideas for cutting carrots. There's a lot of different other techniques, but there's probably the most common ones that I use. So anyway, let me know if you have any questions about that, and we'll see you on the next one. Thank you.